Hello and welcome back to our series Making the Cut on cutover planning. Today we are going to be talking about clinical cutover, and we have a special treat in that one of our clients, Gail Boushley, is here. She is the team leader for training and optimization from Bellin Health, and she is joined by Megan Rice, who is a practice director at Nordic. I'm John Pollard, part of the marketing team here at Nordic, and I think we're going to have a great conversation. Gail, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
At the time when we went live with Epic, I was a manager of an inpatient unit and also the operational lead for the Epic implementation. I've been a nurse now for 30 years, so I have a long-standing clinical background.
Sounds like we picked the right person to be part of this series. Megan, how about you?
Yeah, so I'm Megan Rice, and
You're not a nurse.
I'm not a nurse. I would not even get close to thinking I was one. But I have an Epic background. I was a consultant with Bellin and worked on Gail's team as a ClinDoc application lead for the team here, and I am currently the practice director over Nordic's inpatient consultants.
Excellent. So we've talked a lot about the planning. We've talked a lot about the communications. We've talked about dry runs, and now at some point we get to the night when it's all going to happen. We're going to go live. We're going to flip the switch. When it comes to the logistics around that night, can you tell me, how do you set up a command center? What is going on there?
So the command center is set up. We have computers. Everyone has a telephone. We have our Vocera, which is our communication tool for nursing. We had actually runners, people who could take off and go and help if need be. Otherwise, they stayed within the command center. We also did a lot of preparatory work out on the units by identifying which computer was to be used only for the conversion. We did set up some tools to put into our paper charts to indicate at where we finished with orders, where we finished with information from our graphics sheet on vitals and that, so we would always know where we finished. And then we also had the final, where it was a smiley face and I will break your fingers if you go in there and write an order.
Those are for the physicians, let's
be
serious.
That is for the physicians. But out of humor, we did call that out for our physicians,
sure,
because they were going from pen and paper now to using a mouse. So it helped us so that when someone would grab a chart, it was easy for them to identify where we were in helping them get ready.
Sure.
So they were well aware of each phase of it, and they could see where we were at.
Yeah. And I feel like that was really helpful too, even just having that, I think it was a bright green piece of paper in the paper chart, so that anyone who came through, particularly the clinicians that were going to be documenting anything or placing new orders, they knew this patient's chart had already been converted into Epic. So if they were going to write new orders or if anything else was going to be done for that patient, we actually had the team come back around to those units to make sure that that information got entered into the chart so that it was a full chart by the time they were live on Epic.
Yes.
Now, you mentioned these runners. So these runners are going out and solving one-off problems, and you're communicating with these runners via the walkie-talkie, Vocera guys. Okay.
Right.
Okay. How did you plan to staff those? How many runners do I need, or is that just, I got a bunch of, there's kids? What are they?
I think
What's
we were
a
at a
runner?
point we probably would have used somebody's kids if that would have been legal. But we had a few staff members that volunteered to come in and be a helper, not that they felt they could do the conversion piece, but they wanted to help.
Sure.
So anybody who wants to help, never turn them down. There will be a need for them.
And there was a separate team too that also helped, and I think they shared some of the communication on that of we were doing the transition to new medication barcode scanners as well, so that conversion happened at the same time. So lots of moving parts. It's kind of like conducting an orchestra.
Yes.
I feel like you needed all the right instruments to play together to make that go smoothly. But I think communication was like one of the biggest things that we hit home that night, preparing the floors, talking with the end users in advance so they knew what was coming. And correct me if I'm wrong, Gail, but I think the super users also wore vests of some sort to
red vests
indicate that, yeah, these were the conversion team members.
They were your helpers. Those were your go-to people.
Yeah.
And they wore those vests for a couple of weeks, just so they were visible to all of our clinicians, whether it was a nurse on the floor, a physician coming through, doing rounds, they knew who they could go to. So it was really good in that way to have that visual. I think another piece I'd like to call out is that on our night of conversion, every one of our senior leaders was in the house. And our CEO called it over the vocera, saying we were live. Someone had, I don't know if it was a Star Wars saying go on. Yeah, there was some humor there that really makes a difference. But every senior leader was present and out supporting all of our staff, which was phenomenal and made a difference for our staff.
Well, you're talking about things that lead to just keeping a positive attitude. This is a very stressful time. What other ways do you help keep that positive attitude? How do you encourage people to be flexible and those sorts of things during that? I mean, there's a lot at stake.
Right, and some of the things that our senior leaders did was food, as I said earlier, is a huge stress reliever. Comfort food. So they would go out periodically throughout the 24-hour period and take snacks out just to check in on people, saying, hey, how are you doing? Is there anything you need that would make this better? And just brought snacks up to the floors, checking in, even made some rounds on patients to see how they were doing. With it, many of our patients didn't even know we had converted our system. It went pretty flawless as far as they were concerned.
I think another one of the really fun things that was woven throughout this entire implementation was based on the story of a patient. So Gail, I'll let you talk a little bit about Betty and who she was, but in the spirit of keeping things fun, we'll kind of address how people dressed Betty throughout the project.
So the reason that we moved forward with moving to Epic was that we had a patient who had a bad experience in our organization because we had various components, some electronic record, paper record. So we focused our energy to say, we're making this huge investment, this big change to our organization, and we called it the Betty Project. And Betty was the patient, and we wanted to say that we wanted to make sure that we didn't have any more Bettys occur. That we were having a patient feel that we know them, we care for them, and we're going to take care of them while they're here. And so they made big cutouts of Betty, a caricature type of picture, and this was posted on a big stand-up on each unit, and staff would put in the little pocket various reasons why we were doing it. And so it was really great. And then a little slap happy after a while when we first converted, and they started dressing Betty up. On our oncology medical unit, they put a wig on Betty and gave her a hat and a purse. She actually had a really nice Coach purse for a while, and earrings. So then there was a little contest who could dress Betty the best. And Betty was there with us in person, the real person, for our go live.
But you did not dress her.
She dressed herself.
She dressed her, okay, just to be clear.
Yes, she dressed herself, and she has been a patient since and has reported to us that everything we did make a difference in her opinion. So Betty, to this day, is our Epic icon.
It's a great story.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, another one of the things I think, besides needing to be flexible and keep everything happy and light, I guess it's related to flexibility. How do you plan for the unexpected? What do you do?
Think about what's the worst thing that you think could happen and be prepared for it. So we planned for a full house. planned for a full moon, although I did check the calendar before. But you plan for those worst case scenarios. 5 emergency surgeries, which you typically wouldn't have in the middle of the night, but being prepared for that. We made sure that we did not have any elective surgeries scheduled. Was another big thing that we said, only urgent and emergent will get on that schedule for surgery, because we needed to keep our patients safe. So those types of things, planning, what is your worst case scenario, whether you were converting or not? We've all lived them. If you've been in healthcare, you've lived them. So, you know, what happens if we don't come back up when we flip the switch? Well, we have our downtime forms already planned for and printed and ready to use. So we were well prepared.
I think the other thing too, so Bellin has, or had 3 facilities that were going to be converting on the same nights. They went live with 3 facilities on the same day. And their critical access hospital up in Oconto typically had a census of how many patients in the middle of the night?
3 or 4.
3 or 4. So we planned that they were going to be full that night as well. And there was a separate team in their command center there. There was a separate team in the command center at the psychiatric facility and then at the main medical center. And ironically, although we planned for it to be a full census up in Oconto, they didn't have any patients at the time of cutover. So that team was still at the ready in case any patients did need to get admitted. So I think just making sure that you don't, you know, leave any pieces behind and just planning for you know, the most possible event.
Yeah, plan for the worst and you're never disappointed.
Well, it sounds like you guys were well prepared. So we've talked about the night, the going live, the cutover, the actual cutover. Now when it comes to post-cutover, what are the most important things for you to be doing, to be considering, to be looking at? What should I be caring about or concerned about?
I think the most important is having those super users around the clock, visible out there supporting the staff and the providers that come through. That is probably the most critical piece at Go Live, is having that at the elbow support for people to make sure that when they do have that, okay, I didn't cover this in training. Something strange comes in the door. What do we do? You have people there to help support you and get the help. If they can't help you, they have the direct line to our command center to get the right people to that problem area. So having those super users is really critical. And it'll be critical ongoing for upgrades and adding on additional modules. Those super users are very critical to your organization.
So are they there indefinitely, or they're just my defined super user that my go-to people, or are they like in sort of super user mode for a specific amount of time?
For the Go Live, we kept them in place around the clock for the first 3 weeks. Then we backed down in the off hours where there was less activity, and based on feedback from departments. Some departments were like, you know, we're really rocking it here. We're only going to go with 1 super user versus 2. So we let the operational staff in each of those departments kind of give us the pulse of that area as to whether they were going to continue on. But we did maintain their skill as super users. To this day, we still have those same super users and use them during upgrades.
Very cool, very cool. So with any major complex project, there have to be things that, you know, we talked about expecting the unexpected. There had to be things that didn't maybe go quite as you thought they would. What were some of the lessons that you guys learned, or maybe things didn't work out quite like you planned?
During our conversion over into the Epic from the paper record, we did identify we could have used more ADT people. That seemed to be slower getting that patient insurance in, their demographics, that type of information. And then pharmacy, we didn't have enough pharmacists to help us, because you never know how many patients are going to come in and have 25 home medications, and then they're on all these complex drips. So given that we had a very busy house, we could have used a couple more pharmacists. So that would be something I would say to really look at.
And by ADT, Gail, you mean the admission staff themselves,
Yes.
as opposed to like the ADT analysts on an EPIC team.
Right.
Yeah.
The people who do your admission, putting in the information with the demographics. Those are the people that you have to have that done first before you can enter data, because that patient's record isn't created yet. So that did slow us up a bit in the beginning.
So you've put people through a pretty stressful time as well. What were the ways that you guys sort of recognized the hard work of the team? Any fun, positive things that you guys did?
Well, we had some criteria our organization had to meet. We had 3 measures. One was activating my chart, and a couple other safety measures. And if our organization, both ambulatory and acute, met those, every employee received an iPad as a thank you for all their hard work. And I can tell you, everybody got their iPad.
Well done.